Oh, crikey dingoes. So it is yet another month over and done with. As per usual, I film this a couple of days before the end of the month and then have an extra clip at the end, just in case. But, yeah, I imagine when I get to the end of this filming, I'll actually know what I'm going to watch tomorrow. You'll know in a couple of minutes. So, what did we do? We've got, oh boy, Jesus, but that can't have been this month. March. My God, we watched a lot in March. Okay, so March. We started with, on the first, Resident Evil, the final chapter. I gave it a 1.5 stars. I rewatched it with my brother. This concluded us watching the Resident Evil films, which I didn't think we'd rewatched. I didn't think we'd watch this film. I kind of liked it a bit more this time around, but I don't know. I don't mind its style, but once you get to, and I hate its editing style, but like I don't mind its narrative style. But once you get to Retribution, it's like it sets up something that is promised and then isn't given. It's just a waste to watch the final chapter. It's not even really the end, is it? So I gave it a 1.5 stars. Then on the second, I watched Notting Hill, which I gave 3.5 stars because Dad had watched it the day before, like 2 days prior, and I was like, I want to watch this. So I got the DVD out and then realized it was on Netflix, so I watched it on Netflix. It's just in HD, so and because it was on Netflix, they had Emily the Criminal. I believe that's on Binge as well. It's on a few streaming services. I only gave it 3 stars. I thought it was alright. I didn't love it, but I thought Aubrey Plaza was pretty good in it. It was an interesting story, but I wasn't overly compelled the whole time. But I did recommend it to my dad, and he quite liked it. Then I watched The Prestige. I gave that 3.5 stars because, everyone goes on about how The Prestige is Nolan's most underrated film, and I mean, sure, I guess. No one talks about Following, but yeah, no, The Prestige, that's the underrated one. I mean, it looks nice, but I don't know, I wasn't overly compelled this time watching it. I'm like, it's fine. I had the 4K, I haven't watched the 4K yet, so I'm like, I'll do that. It was fine. I enjoyed it, but I don't know, I think after the first watch and arguably after the second watch, it's like, yeah, I get it. I'm good. I don't think I need to watch this again for a while. Maybe I just wasn't in the mood, but I did want to watch it, so I mean, I don't know. Followed that up with the Criterion of All About Eve, which I gave 4.5 stars because a masterpiece is a masterpiece. I'll probably give it 5 stars next time around. I don't know. I was kind of like dozing a little bit out sometimes. Not dozing, but like, I don't know, looking at my phone. A lot of talking. It's a good film. Good transfer on the Criterion. I followed that up on the same day with Collateral on 4K, which fucking amazing. Like, I gave that also 4.5 stars, so I mean, they're two totally different films, but, I got to appreciate what you got to appreciate. Followed that up on the 5th with Creed 3. I gave that 4 stars, which was my top of the year. Isn't anymore, but solid flick. I like the Creed films. I don't dislike the second one, but I've heard that there's word is that it's not the best film in the world. I'm like, alright, I mean, I liked it when I watched it. I've seen all the Rocky films. I've liked almost every single one of them, except for, like, the 5th one, I think? Yeah. I like Rocky Balboa a lot. That one's, like, really underappreciated, I think. I like the style of it. Then I watched The Dead Zone, because I had the Scream Factory, and that 4K scan, delicious. And I'm keeping the imprint version because the imprint version has commentaries and stuff that the Scream Factory just doesn't have. So it's like one has better special features, the other one has a better transfer. So it's like, you get what you get, I guess. It does have some interesting special features, the Screen Factory, but it's just a few interviews, nothing much. I'm getting on that Cronenberg train. It's pretty good. Then I watched the 4K UHD of Starship Troopers as per request by Rodney. He wanted me to take a look at the transfer, and I think I covered it in the following that week after this weekend. And yeah, really nice transfer. Fun-ass film, 4.5 stars. I love this film, it's fantastic. And then to do a completely different war film on the same night, I watched All Quiet on the Western Front, the original from 1930. I gave it 4 stars, I really liked it. It was a different narrative style than I was expecting, because it was it felt a lot more non-linear. Well, not really, a bit more disconnected, as if you follow a troop in, like a class of kids into the war, and eventually they're all picked off one by one until you kind of are stuck with one last guy, kind of like Alien in a way. And yeah, it's got a really fucking depressing ending, but it's a really well shot, really well made film. On the other hand, 2 days later, on the 8th, I watched All Quiet on the Western Front, the 2022 version. I gave it 3 stars. It's fine. You know, pretty standard war film as to today's standards. I think the original is a lot better. I don't like the ending of this one, not because it's not depressing, but because, I mean, it is depressing, but it's also like, it's just a bit cheap. The fact that it won all those Academy Awards, I'm like, get fucked. It deserved like 2 of them, and like Best International Picture, maybe, sure, I didn't watch any of the others, and I think there was another award that it got that I'm like, yeah, sure, but like, Best Cinematography, I don't even know what the fuck else it won. I feel like it won Best Score, and it had a terrible score. Utterly atrocious. I don't know, it had random electronic droning. I'm like, what the fuck is this movie? But why is it, why is it so long? Then on the 9th, I watched Mischief Night, because I sold the Blu-ray that had Mischief Night and All Hallows Eve as a double feature, as well as the Terrifier one, so hooray, I don't have them anymore. But I do have Terrifier with All Hallows Eve, the Umbrella version, so that's why I sold them. So I figured I'd watch Mischief Night, and I gave it 2 stars. It's fine. It's not really much to go ahead on, but sure, I guess. Then I rewatched Scream from 2022, 5 Cream. I hate the name still, but I find the film to be enjoyable. I gave it 3 stars. It's not the best Scream film. It's not the worst either. It's like, I feel like the third one is still the weakest. I do like the third one because it's different, but I think it is the weakest. But the 4th and 5th one are kind of on par. Basically like the same, but just different styles because it's different directors. But I like the modern style of the 5th one, but I like the directing of the 4th one, and I prefer the characters of the 4th one. So yeah, and again, they're both trying the exact same approach, but the 5th one does it better because it's 10 years later, and hey, look, in the past 10 years, there's been a lot more legacy sequels, or requels as they call it, like the reboot sequel. On the 11th, I watched The Banshees of Inisherin on Disney Plus because they had it in 4K. I was going to get the Blu-ray, but it has like one special feature, and then the 4K is on Disney Plus in like HDR and everything. And I'm like, I think it's in Dolby Vision even. And I'm like, I'm going to do that. That sounds a lot better. And I'm not paying for Disney Plus. It's my girlfriend's account, so it's like, this is wonderful. So I did that, and that was pretty good. I gave it 4.5 stars. Wasn't my favorite of last year, but as in of the 2022 films. But yeah, so check out my 2022 ranked list. I think it just hit my 20th. I think, yeah, the 20th of the year. So yeah, I think it just beat out Barbarian. I'm pretty sure. But then on the same night, I watched Little Shop of Horrors. Watched that on binge with 2 of my mates. One of whom I believe hadn't seen it, so it was like me, Bill, and Simone. And Simone and I adore the film, so I gave it 4.5 stars. We actually, because they didn't have the director's cut, which is my preferred version. Actually, Simone and I, it's our preferred version of the film. So I found the YouTube. Someone had put the original ending on YouTube, so we watched that after watching the theatrical run. So yeah, it's the original ending is so much better. Then Bill and I, it technically was the same day, but I think it was just passing midnight by that stage. Continued on binge and watched The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. It was a rewatch from last year. Still gave it 3.5 stars. It's a fun movie. I enjoy it. I didn't love it the first time I watched it, but I'm like, I dig it, Once you kind of get past the jerk off of it all, it's pretty fun, And I do like that of all the choices of the young Nick Cage that they went with the Wild at Heart press tour version, which is like fucking great. That was a great idea. And then of course Scream 6 with Lachlan. We got really, really cheap tickets, so we went to see it at Hoyt's. And yeah, it was a packed cinema. I was sitting next to the row of lights in an extreme screen. and they keep all the lights on the stairwell, which is really annoying. But he got the broken chair, so I actually think I got the better one because I was like so transfixed on the film that I really enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 stars. I really liked it. I can see why a lot of people are saying it's like the next best Scream after the first one, but I mean, it's the third best. You can't beat Scream 1 and 2. Like, this is just Scream 2, but done 20 years later, like 25 years later. So I'm like, I prefer Scream 2. That's my favourite. Sorry. The first one's the best, but the second one's my favourite. And then I came home and Noah was watching Old on 4K, so I came in, watched the last 45 minutes, was like, damn, this last 45 minutes slaps. I'm going to rewatch the first hour. So I did that, and then I watched like all the special features. And yeah, good special features, fantastic film, gave it 5 stars. Shyamalan's masterpiece. What can I say? It just is. It's just fantastic. And then I got a bit high and watched Swiss Army Man because I thought that could be fun. Turns out, nah, you really got to watch an action comedy when you're high because honest to God, a lot of movies are really fucking boring when you're high. Still gave it 5 stars because I love it. But yeah, I mean, I liked Annihilation when high. I'm testing out new movies to see in that kind of an experience. I tried The Thing, got 20 minutes in, was like, I'm not, it's too slow. So, because time moves real slow for me when I do that, so it's like, yeah, I need to watch an action comedy, something that's fast paced, gives you jokes that I guess stoner comedy is probably a good idea as well, but I don't know, I guess I'll get to them when I get to them. Then I watched Tar. This is post my 2022 list. I put pretty high up there. I gave it 4.5 stars. Honestly, don't love it, I guess, because I kind of forget that I've watched it sometimes, but I liked it. It's just long. It's really long, which isn't a bad thing, but it has a really iconic ending, so I'm like, I'll give it that. But it's a really well performed, interestingly done, but yeah, it's not bad. And then I started a journey that I haven't yet regretted. I watched Jewel and the Curse, because I actually watched 5 films in one day, technically. 2 of them were short films. So on the 16th, I watched Jewel and the Curse. I gave it 3.5 stars. I have the Arrow video box set. I wanted to watch them. And it was like, oh, well, Jewel and the Curse was the original film. Because it was a direct-to-DVD. So I watched that, and I really liked it. So then I discovered that there were the 2 short films, the In a Corner and 44444444444. So I watched those 2 as well, because they're on YouTube, and they're fine. Cute, but nothing much. And then I followed that up with Jewel and the Curse 2 because the first the first 25 to 30 minutes is just the highlights of the previous film, and then it's all new footage after that, which is great, but I still gave it 2.5 stars because I'm like, yeah, nah. Like, if you don't have the Blu-ray set, there's a supercut that literally is just is all of the Curse in one film, because, Curse 2 is, again, just footage from the first film put into the second film, which I can understand because watching the director talk about it prior to the film, he does introductions, he mentioned how, if you're okay with rewatching the same footage, then sure, but at the same time, he's like, yeah, you can skip most of this stuff because it was only in it to basically pad the runtime so they could get out a sequel, even though they'd already filmed it. They'd filmed the whole thing in like 9 days or 2 weeks or whatever, and did a 70-minute cut, and then was like, this will end here, and then had the rest of the footage, and like, I guess we'll just release that, and they released it a few months later, and that's what took off in terms of sales, because, I guess that was the scarier version. So, yeah, that's how we got the franchise after that. But then I watched Jumanji on 4K, because I hadn't watched it since, it was almost 3 years to the day. I watched it on the 16th, I believe I watched it on, the 2nd of March 2020. A lot of stuff has happened since the last time I watched that movie. A lot of bad stuff. So yeah, I think that was the DVD last time. This time it was the 4K. 4K scan looks real fucking nice. But yeah, 3.5 stars. Very fun. Then on the next day, which I believe was a Thursday, it might have been a Friday. It was a Friday, yeah. I watched Relic from 2020. They had technically the official screening in Australia, because they never got to screen it in Australia because of the pandemic, and the director was meant to be there, but she had a bit of a head cold, so she zoomed in, which was nice of her. We got a Q&A, which was very cool. It was during a whole horror conference that they had, which I couldn't attend because I got a day job, so I wasn't able to go, which fucking sucked. And like a bunch of my old lecturers and tutors went, so I got to hang out with them after the movie and chat with them for a bit. But for the most part, I gave it 4 stars. I really liked it. It was great in cinema. I'm glad I waited till I watched it in cinema to watch it. So yeah, but yeah, I'd suggest it definitely. Then on the 18th, I watched Faults. I gave it 4 stars. I watched it because Lance Reddick had passed away, and he stars in the film briefly, but it's not my favorite of his performances. That might probably go to The Guest or the John Wick films. But yeah, so it turns out Mary Elizabeth Winstead, good cast overall, directed by her now ex-husband, produced by her. So I think someone had suggested it to me when I'd done my Mary Elizabeth Winstead review, and I found it on YouTube, the whole movie for free for 1080p. So I'd suggest it if you can find it on YouTube. Good little thriller. Then I rewatched John Wick, 4.5 stars, banger. Watched it in 4K, spectacular film. Then I right after watched John Wick Chapter 2, watched the Blu-ray of it because I don't have the 4K yet, and I gave it 4 stars. It's definitely the weakest of the films, but still very goddamn good. Then I watched Ju-on the Grudge, which I gave 3 stars. Didn't really care much for it. I'm like, it feels like a lesser remake of the Curse film, but just a bit more disjointed in a way, not as much emotional connection for me. Definitely nowhere near as scary. I didn't think it was that scary at all, so I thought it was okay. I mean, if it's your opening point, then sure, but I feel like if any of these films are your opening point, maybe except for the American Grudge film, then, I don't know, any of these that are your opening point, they're going to scare you. The rest of them, it's the exact same stuff. I'll talk about it in another video where I dive deep into the Grudge films with the American films as well, as much of the Grudge films as I can get my viewing habity eyes on, but mostly it would just be that Japanese box set that Arrow released in the trilogy that the Americans did, plus the hopefully the 2020 remake, which I believe I have. Yeah, I do have the 2020 remake. Or 2019 remake? I don't fucking know. I don't know. I got it on Blu-ray. Who really cares? Then I watched Ju-on the Grudge 2. I gave it 4 stars. I really like this one. It was my favourite currently of the series. I thought they did some really great new ideas. Really nicely scary. Some great effects work. So, yeah, I really dug it. Then on the same day, I watched John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum 4K, because they had the unrated cut on the 4K, and it was 5 stars. Fucking masterpiece of a film. I absolutely loved it. I definitely recommend it to literally everyone. Obviously, watch the previous films. It usually helps. Then I did a double feature of Ju-on White Ghost and Ju-on Black Ghost. I gave Ju-on White Ghost 2.5 stars. It was interesting. I think it was... Did I say that Ju-on White Ghost was the creepier one? Black Ghost has a stronger narrative and mystery, which I really enjoyed. Definitely better than the two anniversary films, where White Ghost has better effects, works, and scares. Black Ghost has a better atmosphere and story. There you go. Black Ghost does have one really good shot that's really creepy, but then they do a close-up of the ghost, and it just looks like crap. So it's like, that you shouldn't have done that. They do a lot of close-ups of the ghost creature, and it's just a bad idea. It's just one of those, it's kind of like CGI ghost, but black. Just looks bad. But yeah, I gave Ju-on Black Ghost 3 stars. I think it's the better of the two. It has a more interesting story, but it's basically Malignant, but not as good. Then I watched on the Criterion channel, because I figured I hadn't watched anything on the channel all month, and my subscription was almost up, and I haven't resubscribed yet. I've put my channel on pause for now, because I can't be bothered going on it anytime soon. A lot more TV shows on binge and stuff to watch. Paramount Plus, fucking Yellow Jacket, so yeah, and Succession's now out, so yeah. But I gave Yes Madam 4 stars. Just good stuff. Just even just watching on my laptop, I'm like, this fucking slaps. 90 minutes? Michelle Yeoh looks fantastic. It's very 80s, but I love it. It was really fun. Michelle Yeoh does not look anything like herself because she's got short hair, but I don't really care. That she was great in it. So, Then on the same day, because this was a Sunday, I went and saw the new John Wick, Chapter 4, with my brother. I gave it 4.5 stars. Fucking loved it. But yes, then I watched, on the 27th, I watched Batman vs. Two-Face. I was really tired whilst watching this. I don't know, I crashed badly after this. And this was at like 7 o'clock I started watching it. And I was like, by the time it finished, it's only like a 70-minute film. And I got the Blu-ray for like $3. It was fun. I gave it 3 stars. I love the 66 Batman version. I've got the whole show. I've got the movie. I don't have Return of the Cape Crusaders, but I don't really care to watch that. I might at some stage, but this one was fun. Basically, what if they actually had originally put Two-Face in the original show, which they were going to, but they never worked out. So, yeah, and William Shatner's really good. They just obviously all sound older. I'm like, why does, Catwoman sound so old? They couldn't have cast a younger woman, but I'm like, it's probably just the same actress who played Catwoman in the original show, and they just kept her, and they did. Same with like Burt Ward and obviously Adam West. So, and his last role as Batman. So, yeah, sad, but a really fun final film for him. And then I watched the American The Grudge from 2004. Again, same director. I gave this one 3.5 stars. I actually prefer it to Ju-on The Grudge, but I still think Ju-on The Curse and Ju-on The Grudge 2 are better films. But basically, the American version of The Grudge is like, hey, what if we just remade The Grudge? Again, same director, same crew in Japan, that kind of stuff. But then they add like highlights of the Curse film, and I kind of dig that. So, and I think it tightens it up a bit more in the American version in terms of like the story, the main story. I think it's better emotional impact in the original Curse film, but not in the Ju-on The Grudge film. But in The Grudge, I think it works quite well. So I still think it's better in The Curse, but they all have their ups and downs. So yeah. Then tonight, on the 30th, I've watched at the Astor Videodrome. Yeah, I know, I only watched it like 2-3 months ago, 2 months ago, I think, on my Criterion. I gave it 4.5 stars this time. I gave it an extra half star. Wonderful with a crowd. The 4K scan they projected looked fantastic. Wonderful, again, like with a crowd. The amount of comedy in that film, I did not realize the first time watching it. Obviously, the second time watching it, I'm like, this film's hilarious. There's a lot more stuff that I picked up on, comedy-wise, and it didn't really feel tiresome at all. Like, I rewatching it, I'm like, this just feels fresh. There was like a slight part in the middle, like a 10-15 minute portion. I'm like, a little bit dragged out, but, I really dug it. And even the ending feels a bit weird, but I liked it a lot more the second time, kind of realizing what they were doing. So yeah, it's really fun. But to conclude it with 5 stars, The Thing. Finally get to watch John Carpenter's The Thing, complete widescreen in the cinema. I don't know if I've watched a John Carpenter film in cinema before, but it was a absolute blast. I got to see it with 3 of my mates. In this case, Joel, who hadn't seen it before, as well as Ben and Guy. So, yeah. I mean, I was going to watch this double feature. I thought it was like last week, but I was working on the Friday, so I'm like, I'll just watch the Ju-on films and stay home. And then yesterday, this being Wednesday, saw the Astor shared on they were sharing someone's story or whatever, and I realized it was still on the calendar for the Thursday. I'm like, oh shit, that's tomorrow. So I messaged this guy saying, hey, they got this on tomorrow. And he's like, yeah, I'm going. I'm like, oh fuck, you're right, I'll go as well. So it was really worth it. I really, really enjoyed it. So Yellow Jackets is back. Also good news. And I'll probably watch Yellow Jackets tomorrow after John Wick. Probably that. Just to get it over and done with, because I know Guy watches it the day it comes out, so he'll probably want to talk about it, especially on Sunday, because we're planning to watch Dungeons and Dragons. Not much else to it. I will note, I did start watching The Orville past the first season. Really like the first season. A couple episodes into season 2. Not loving the second season so far, but I've heard it gets a lot better by the second half, so I'm pretty keen for that. It's on Disney Plus, so I'm like, yeah, I can watch this, like an episode or two a night. It's pretty good. I would at least like to note as well, I don't know if the person who mentioned it in the previous This Weekend, I'll have to cut it out of the next one, because not this coming weekend, Mondays, but the one after, because I got the, you'll see it eventually, the Halloween collection set, which I intended Katie Sackhoff to sign, but she announced today that she's not actually coming to Supernova in Melbourne, so yeah. But I still wanted to get the set anyway, so I'm happy to have it, but yeah, I'm just fucking... It's so annoying. I mean, I get it, saving money's great, but my god. It's alright, I've still got the guy who voiced Scooby-Doo. It's like that and hang out with friends is the only reason I'm going. So yeah. So almost ironically, didn't actually see John Wick. My friend called in sick. Something that I kind of expected, which is fine. It happens. So I'm always good at making alternative plans, and I did. I mentioned to my mate who wanted to see Dungeons and Dragons on Sunday that I was free now, so we saw it today. But that's not the first thing I watched. I actually watched 3 whole movies today to round out my list of movies for the month of March. Starting with The Grudge 2 from 2006. I gave it a 1.5 stars. It's not bad, it's just kind of a waste of time. Like, it has one good death scene with a Japanese girl, but that's in like the creepiest situation where she's got a white boyfriend who clearly seems to be in his mid-20s, you know, and she's like maybe 17, maybe 18, like it's probably legal, but it's also a bit creepy, so they don't really play it on a creepy element, it just kind of comes off that way to some degree, but at the same time they have a really good misdirect for her death scene, so I enjoyed that. You thought, she's in a bed, you think that the ghost is going to come out through the bed like it did in the previous film, but no, it comes through the reverse mirror that's on the back of the bed. Really nicely done. The rest of the movie is kind of a waste of time. It's exceptionally boring, it's exceedingly long, and it just adds all this extra backstory to Kayako that is just so worthless. Like, I know the director thought it was an interesting idea, but I'm like, yeah, but it sucks. And then you keep cutting to fucking Chicago, and that part also sucks. Like, it's meant to be like, oh, there's this twist, who's this girl gonna be? It's clearly gonna be the other American girl who we've been following for the other half of the film that isn't the main character from the previous film's sister, who was only introduced in this film to, you know, take over from Sarah Michelle Gellar, who gets killed off in this one. So, yeah. Not great. But I then followed that immediately with The Grudge 3. I figured, look, I had 2 hours to kill before I had to leave, so I watched it. I gave it a star. It was so boring. It was like, it wasn't even scary. It had potential to have at least 1 or 2 decent scares, but it's just boring, and it just becomes convoluted. It has this whole part where it has your main, like your starting thing, then your credits, and then it cuts to a Japanese couple, and they discover the news, and then you don't see that couple again, and I didn't realize that there's a Japanese girl who pops up in America, and it turns out she was that same girl, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's fair enough, but the reason why is because they made it that Kayako now had a sister. So, like, her mother was, like, poisoning her, but not the sister. And so the sister had, like, a normal-ass fucking life, but they just never mentioned her until now. So, yeah, it's not great. It's not worth watching at all. But I will be doing a full coverage video of all of these films. I just got to watch the 2019 Grudge film, then I'll be able to cover all of the Grudge films, not including the 2 last Japanese ones, the beginning of the end and the final curse, because I can't bother watching them. Also, I don't know where I can find them, but I do know that I can find Kayako vs. Sadako on YouTube for free, so I might watch that before I watch the Ringu trilogy, plus it also has Spiral, so anyway, that's for next month and a potential future video. Definitely a future video. I really want to fucking talk about this shit. And last but not least, to end off, obviously, the month, Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. I gave it 3.5 stars. I actually found it rather enjoyable. I wasn't completely in love with it up until a point where it just was just fun. I don't know. It's. I feel like it's hard to describe in a way. Just trying to check the spelling. Yes, because I always write down the films I have on my that I've watched on a list on my phone, but because Honor in America doesn't have a U, I couldn't write it like that on my phone. So it doesn't really matter. I thought the film was fun. I really liked the director's previous film of Game Night, a classic, and yeah, it was just a fun adventure film. It doesn't completely feel its runtime because it is quite a long film, until like the last part. But then I don't know. We watched it in 40x, so it was very rocky and adventurous with water and wind and all that jazz spraying at you. So I'm not overly fond of it, but I don't mind. I don't know, I guess action scenes where people are doing fist fights and sword fights is not the best thing to watch in 40x, but yeah, I don't know, I had a fun time. That was, my mate Guy, who watched it with me, he had a ball. Like, I don't know, he said that like after like the first really big joke, which like ends this like the opening sequence, basically the characters jump out a window and someone says, "Hey, but we've actually let you go." Because they're prisoners. He was like, "Yeah, no, I was sold on the rest of the movie," and I'm like, "All right." I mean, I didn't get sold until like 40 odd minutes in. They go to a graveyard, and if you've seen the film or you've seen a trailer, they talk to some undead people. It's pretty funny. It's some classic stuff I've seen before. Most of this film is stuff I've seen before in different forms of media. Hell, I watched Futurama Bender's Game, but that's fine. But yeah, I figured this was fun. Worth the watch in the cinema. Maybe not 40x, but still. Not 40x. It has some good usage of FX work. But yeah. Anyway, that's all for this month. See you at the end of April. Whatever the hell I get up to there. Yeah. Also, watch Yellow Jackets. Like Succession, most people are going to be watching anyway, but you gotta watch Yellow Jackets. I just watched the most recent episode because Friday night's Yellow Jackets night. Beautiful, I love it, wonderful show. 10 out of 10, would suggest to anyone. Goodbye, have a good night.